I thought, they had a terrible, terrible row after Meghan had gone to abroad to talk about never do this with your children, put them in front of the television. They had a massive, massive row. And I think this is Harry trying to make her feel better. That's my view about it. And she would be very pleased, but she'll do this absolutely hideous thing of using an AI thing to have somebody look rather strange, because the face is very strange. It's not right. You can see it's not a natural strain.
Something has shifted, and you can feel it in the tone of the coverage, in the sharpness of the questions being asked, in the very particular silence coming from Meghan Markle's team every time the harder inquiries land. The carefully built mythology she's spent years constructing around her daughter Lilibet, the mystique, the hidden face, the perfectly curated glimpses of a sun-soaked California life is starting to crack. And the person doing the most damage isn't a tabloid journalist, isn't a palace insider, isn't some long-standing rival with an axe to grind. It's Angela Levin, Harry's own authorized biographer, the woman who sat with the prince for months, listened to him, believed in him, and has now decided that the time for polished, careful language is over. Levin's recent statements about Meghan, about Lilibet, about the photographs, about the AI allegations.
And I mean, the thing is, this could be a total coincidence. Of course it could be. But my point is that it is Meghan who is encouraging this speculation about the identity of her own daughter. That's what I find creepy.
About Archie's growing disappearance from the Sussex story, they hit different from the usual royal commentary, precisely because they come from someone with real, earned knowledge. She's not guessing. She's not piecing together gossip. She spent genuine time with this man, was granted access that almost nobody else ever received. And what she's saying now cuts straight through every layer of the managed narrative Meghan has built, brick by carefully placed brick, over years. The timing is everything. This story didn't drop into a quiet news cycle. It landed exactly when the Sussex brand is under serious commercial pressure, when Harry's credibility around children and social media has been completely exposed by his own actions, and when Angela Levin has clearly made a decision to stop softening her words and say plainly what she actually believes is happening. And what she believes is happening, it's a whole lot worse than the public version. What makes this moment feel genuinely different from the usual Sussex drama is the pile-up, multiple things unraveling all at once.
There's a huge hypocrisy here given Catherine, Catherine suffering from cancer was hauled over the coals, especially in the American mainstream media. Yet Meghan sort of posts these pictures which all appear to be artificially altered. The actual pictures of the children, which are always so weird.
The brand is struggling. The photographs are generating questions that refuse to die. Angela Levin is speaking with a new, unmistakable bluntness. And Harry's double standard on children and social media is now so visible that even people who wanted to defend him can't find the words. These things aren't happening in isolation. They're feeding each other, amplifying each other, building into something that's getting very hard to contain. And Meghan Markle, whose greatest skill has always been controlling the story, appears to have no good answer for any of it right now. So here's what we're doing today. We're following the truth, not the version Meghan's team once told, not the Instagram caption, not the glossy magazine profile. The real version, as told by the people actually closest to this story, led above all by Angela Levin, a woman whose patience has run out, and whose clarity lands with the unmistakable weight of someone who genuinely wished things had turned out differently. Now let's start with the birthday photographs, because that's exactly where this chapter opens and where things start getting uncomfortable. Lilibet turned 5 recently. Meghan marked the occasion the way she marks most significant moments, now a carefully staged social media campaign. Warm snapshots, soft California light, the suggestion of a life lived with effortless grace, and the quiet implication that this was a woman generously sharing a private, beautiful moment with a world that has, in her own telling,
Actually, if she were just to post normal pictures like a normal woman, then everyone would be able to speak and talk about Lily normally, rather than this sort of internet hunt to find the real Lily, which actually is really horrible.
Been so deeply unfair to her. Except the world didn't respond with warmth and gratitude. It responded with questions. Because when people looked closely at those photographs, and people always look closely at Sussex content now, because Meghan has trained them to, by making every single image feel like a puzzle, something didn't sit right. The child's face, hidden as always behind carefully positioned hair, had a quality that didn't match natural photography. Proportions slightly off, texture slightly wrong, a digital smoothness that has no business appearing in a candid family snapshot. And when investigative writer Paula Froelich placed those images alongside photographs from a California children's clothing brand called Little Olives, launched at roughly the same time Meghan was building her As Ever lifestyle brand, the resemblance between the children in both sets of images was striking in a way that was very hard to brush aside. Froelich ran the launch copy from both brands through Google's Gemini AI. The result was stark. The As Ever text was nearly an exact clone of the Little Olives copy, simply repackaged with a royal branding theme. Same rigid structure, same formula, just different nouns swapped in to fit the prompt.
The problem you've got here in a relationship with Meghan and Harry is this is a boy that was pretty much traumatised by media presence when he was little. He didn't really want any of this publicity. He was always attacking photographers. She's someone, ever since she was on the red carpet, who's craved publicity.
And this verdict didn't come from a journalist with a predetermined angle. It came from an AI tool with absolutely no stake in the outcome. There's a particular sting in the timing of all this. Lilibet's 5th birthday should have been simple, a mother celebrating her daughter, images shared with real pride and real love, free of the suffocating strategic calculation that surrounds every piece of Sussex content. The fact that it has instead exploded into a global debate about AI generation and brand manipulation, that's not the media's fault. That's not the public's fault. Every single choice that created this debate was made by Meghan herself. Now, could all of this be coincidence? Sure, it could. California is full of a certain type of woman, launching a certain type of brand with a certain type of aesthetic. But here's what can't just be wished away. Meghan has already been documented using AI in her imagery before. That's not speculation. That's fact. And the entire mystery surrounding Lilibet's face is a mystery entirely of Meghan's own making. Nobody demanded it.
She has kept on and on and on and on. She has made him hate his family. She has made him that he's got bad mental health. And actually, you can do that. You can have a person in your life who tries to drown you and make everything awful. And she hasn't tried to make him better.
Nobody forced it on her. She built it herself deliberately, consistently, photograph by photograph, year after year. And now she has to live inside what she built, including the deeply uncomfortable questions that come with it. Because, at the end of the day, it is Meghan who created the speculation around her own daughter's identity. That's what makes this genuinely unsettling, and Angela Levin says it best. Her central observation about the photograph situation is so elegantly simple that it takes a second to realize just how devastating it actually is. If Meghan simply posted normal pictures of her daughter the way ordinary women do every single day without sparking global controversy, none of this would exist. No mystery, no AI allegations, no internet hunt for the real Lilibet, no comparisons to California clothing brands, just a child's 5th birthday, celebrated and moved on from. The mystery isn't something that happened to Meghan. It's something Meghan built deliberately, consistently, over years. And Levin doesn't just find this strange. She finds it actively, specifically creepy, and she uses that word with full intention.
Look at his face, and he can't do it because he still loves her, or, whatever his reason is. He doesn't want to say, whoops, I made a big mistake. You see, all those are not smiling, and she can manipulate him And I feel that that's what she's done.
Because what Meghan has managed to do through this strategy is turn her own 5-year-old daughter into the subject of a global guessing game. The internet hunt for Lilibet's real face isn't the media's creation. It is the entirely predictable result of a mother who decided that controlled mystery served her commercial interests better than simple, honest transparency. And the cruelest irony, Meghan has done all of this while maintaining with truly extraordinary composure that every single choice she makes is about protecting her child. That protection narrative has been at the core of Meghan's public identity since the very beginning. Nobody argues with a mother protecting her child. The instinct is universal, the rhetorical position almost bulletproof. Frame your choices around it, and suddenly every evasion looks like dignity. Every refusal looks like principle. Every hidden face looks like an act of maternal love. It was a masterclass in building a moral position that doubles as a shield against scrutiny, and for a long time, longer than many expected, it held.
She doesn't give a damn about him, does she? Because he's not going to make her the money.
And he's not in it. I mean, what does he feel? He's 7. Well, there it is now, but that's an old photo. But, to say that to a 7-year-old, push him out because she doesn't feel the same about him as she does about Lilith for gaining money. It's just horrible, isn't it? Really horrible.
Angela Levin is now publicly taking it apart, and she's doing it not with noise or outrage, but with something far more effective: specificity. She knows the timeline, she knows the details, she knows what Harry was like before and what he has become now, and the comparison does not flatter the current version. Levin's authority here comes from something very real. She was there before Meghan. She spent time with Harry when he was still, in meaningful ways, the man he had always been before what she now describes, with striking clarity, as a slow and systematic dismantling. She saw the ambitions he carried. She heard his genuine desire to do something worthwhile with his position. She watched him be, at his best, a person of real warmth and real potential. And she has watched, with what sounds very much like grief, the replacement of that person with someone who enthusiastically approves photographs that the world has serious reason to question. The contrast isn't subtle, it's total. Levin put it plainly: if she were just to post normal pictures like a normal woman, then everyone would be able to speak and talk about Lily normally, rather than this sort of internet hunt to find the real Lily, which actually is really horrible. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Harry didn't just approve those photographs according to sources speaking to royal correspondent Rob Shooter. He enthusiastically supported them.
I said, he's in a rush to make his mark and seems to treat life as a race too. He explained to me, I want to make something of my life. I now feel there is just a smallish window when people are interested in me before Prince George take over, and I've got to make the most of it. Now then, tell me, that happened 10 years ago, right? Now, if he can't think of a way to do something better over 10 years, I've got no sympathy for him.
The same man who stood on public platforms and passionately condemned parents who exposed their children to social media, the same man who spoke with what appeared to be genuine conviction about shielding children from living their lives in the public eye, that man is now fully on board, not treating the photographs as a compromise of the values he once declared so loudly, but as a celebration of family, a distinction that, apparently, makes all the difference. There is a generous interpretation of this shift. People change. Perspectives evolve. A father finds a more flexible middle ground. Angela Levin does not find that version convincing because she knows exactly how change works in the Sussex household. It happens through a disagreement, followed by Meghan talking, followed by Harry eventually coming around to seeing that Meghan was right all along. That is the pattern. And in this case, the disagreement was significant. Harry had been genuinely uncomfortable with the contradiction of Meghan speaking publicly about keeping children away from screens, while simultaneously building a commercial strategy that placed those very children at its center. His discomfort was real, his resistance was real, and then it faded as it always does. What's striking about Harry's transformation is just how complete it has been across every single area of his life. The family relationships.
You can't actually tell somebody this, to write a biography. In 2017, that's when I wrote that, and you're still getting nowhere by 2026. Wouldn't you be ashamed of yourself not saying that with like a long moan? I was furious reading it.
The military friendships, the charity work rooted in his mother's legacy, the sense of identity that came from being a prince with genuine purpose. All of it gone, all of it surrendered. And what has he gotten in return? A marriage that, by multiple credible accounts, is under serious strain, a brand that is struggling commercially, a life in California that has produced, by every observable measure, a man who is visibly unhappy and privately knows it. What does it feel like to be Harry right now? The picture that emerges is of a man who is completely lost. He has given up too much to go back easily. He has burned too many bridges to cross them again without serious cost. He has said too many things publicly about too many people who once loved him, and California, the supposed refuge, the promised land of freedom and authenticity, has not delivered what was advertised. He is not free. He is not at peace. He is, by every observable sign, trapped. And the photographs of his daughter that he so enthusiastically endorses are, in their own quiet way, the clearest evidence of just how completely that trap has closed around him. Angela Levin knew the Harry who existed before all of this. She sat with him when he was still making plans, still talking about what he wanted to build, still carrying the warmth and purpose that made him, at his best, someone genuinely worth rooting for. She has watched all of that be slowly, methodically stripped away, and she has run out of the patience required to keep that observation to herself.
No one can take Meghan into the palace, absolutely not, no chance. And he would never ever upset her. 100 times. You see them when they were away in Australia, they look at each other very nicely, they have whispers, they make each other laugh. They're incredibly easy together.
As she put it, look at his face and he can't do it because he still loves her, or, whatever his reason is. When someone that close, that genuinely invested in this man's well-being, starts speaking with this level of openness, it means something. It means the situation is considerably worse than the carefully managed public version has ever admitted. Now, while the world has been focused on Lilibet, on her face, her photographs, her 5th birthday campaign, a 7-year-old boy has been quietly and consistently disappearing from the Sussex public narrative. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor, the firstborn, the child whose arrival was supposed to be the defining moment of Harry and Meghan's public life together. The baby who was, by his mother's own passionate account, the very reason they walked away from everything to build a better, freer, more protected life in California. He is gone. Not occasionally absent. Gone. The Instagram posts, the brand imagery, the milestone content, it is all Lilibet. And that deserves to be examined carefully. If the privacy argument were genuine, if protecting the children from public scrutiny were truly the driving force, both children would be equally shielded, the protection would be consistent, both faces hidden, both children treated the same. Instead, what we have is a clear selection. One child featured extensively, one child invisible. And the variable that explains the difference is not love, and it is not privacy. It is commercial value.
That's it. She is slightly frightened of Catherine because she's doing so many good things. But she's got to be very careful, and they don't really want to risk that. I think William is absolutely right. And if that's absolutely right, you stand by them non-stop, and you don't want someone who's really hideous, really rude, trying to destroy the royal family as well as the people in it.
It is, in the plainest possible terms, money. Lilibet, for reasons tied to her name, her symbolism, the late Queen's legacy, the charged story of a Sussex daughter named after the monarch who tried so hard to hold the family together, generates more interest, more engagement, more return on the investment of her public visibility. Archie, at 7, apparently does not produce those same returns, and so he has been quietly, systematically pushed to the sidelines by his own mother's content strategy. And that is not an accusation coming from Sussex enemies. That is the assessment of Angela Levin, the woman who wrote Harry's authorized biography, who sat with him in unguarded moments, who understood his genuine love for his children before any of this began. Archie will grow up. He is 7 now, and he doesn't yet have the words to name what he is experiencing. But children feel imbalance. They feel when one sibling is the center of attention and they are not. They feel when they are less visible, less celebrated, less present in the public story of their own family. He will be 16 one day. He will be 26. He will have access to the internet. He will be able to read all of this, and the question of how he will feel about it, not about the tabloids, not about the media, but about the choices his own mother made about how to value him relative to his sister, that is a question that deserves a moment of silence before we move on. The commercial context matters, and it matters enormously.
Catherine, you can see, has helped make her husband, William, so much better. He knows what it's like being a father. He knows what it's like being a husband. He's learnt it. She's helped him. So you need, if you want a partner, to find someone who's going to help you in your life, not someone who's going to be negative and moan. She moans everything all the time.
The photographs, the AI allegations, the Archie question, none of it is happening in a bubble. It's all unfolding against the backdrop of a brand that is, by multiple credible accounts, in serious commercial trouble. As ever, launched with massive media fanfare and Meghan's personal promise that this was the authentic expression of who she truly is, a woman who loves beauty, simplicity, and the quiet pleasures of a life well lived. The products would reflect that philosophy. People would buy the lifestyle along with the jam. The product is sitting in warehouses. The numbers are not where they need to be for a brand that received this level of media attention at launch. And in response, Meghan has made a move that reveals the state of the operation more plainly than almost anything else could. She has handed the brand's public face to a minor influencer, a woman named Olivia McDowell, with a following of a few 100,000 and no wider profile. And she is, by the assessment of those who have watched both women present the As Ever range, better at it than Meghan, more natural, more convincing. For a brand built entirely around the personal cachet of a duchess, being outperformed in your own promotional content by a minor influencer is not a small embarrassment, it is a structural indictment. The Sussex commercial operation was built on a very specific premise that the combination of Harry's royal identity and Meghan's Hollywood connections would generate enough commercial interest to sustain an independent operation of real scale. The pieces appeared to be in place. What they never actually had, what has become painfully clear, was never really there, was the substance to sustain it. The attention was real. The content that was supposed to fill it was not. And into this struggling operation, the children arrive. When the brand needs a boost, the children appear. The pattern is not subtle, and Angela Levin calls it exactly what it is. And what it is not what a mother protecting her children looks like. The Hello magazine moment captures something essential about how all of this is held together. When Hello magazine approached actress Abigail Spencer on a red carpet and asked about her friendship with Meghan, the interviewer stated plainly on camera that they are Hello magazine with Meghan Markle, not reporting on her, not covering her objectively, working for her. It was an extraordinary admission made in the most casual possible way, confirming what many people have suspected for years, that a significant portion of the mainstream media's positive Sussex coverage is not journalism at all. It is managed content, a service rendered to a client, and when that service is rendered well, birthday photograph campaigns get reported as genuine family moments rather than calculated commercial strategy. Understanding that dynamic is essential to understanding why the questions around Lilibet's photographs took so long to be asked loudly and publicly. The answer is not that nobody noticed. The answer is that for a long time, certain people were paid not to. But the managed media environment that shielded Meghan for so long is shifting. The The questions being asked now are coming from people with real knowledge, not gossip columnists, not internet trolls, but investigators like Paula Froelich and commentators like Angela Levin, who have genuinely earned the right to be taken seriously. And those questions, once asked publicly by credible voices, do not simply disappear because a spokesperson declines to comment. They accumulate, they compound, and eventually they produce exactly what we are now watching: a situation that no amount of lifestyle content or birthday photography can paper over. Now, step back from the specific details and look at the full picture of what has actually happened here. A woman entered the royal family with extraordinary advantages, genuine talent, real ambition, the love of a genuinely popular prince, and the goodwill of a public that was actively rooting for her to succeed. She had every possible opportunity to build something meaningful, and instead, she built a struggling lifestyle brand, a long list of burned bridges, a husband who cannot acknowledge his own transformation, a daughter who has become a global mystery, a son who has been made commercially inconvenient by his own mother's content strategy, and a watching world that cannot look away. Angela Levin watches all of this with the grief of someone who saw a very different outcome and watched it be deliberately discarded. She heard Harry talk about the window closing, about the urgent need to make something of himself before the world's attention shifted. That conversation happened more than 10 years ago, and Levin, looking at where Harry finds himself today, is not simply sad. She is furious because the window did not close on him. He handed it to someone else to climb through, and that someone else used it not to build something meaningful, but to sell condiments and hide a child's face in a birthday photograph that the world has genuine reason to doubt is even real. As Levin sees it, no one can take Meghan into the palace. Meanwhile, William and Catherine are doing the actual, unglamorous, day-by-day work of building a monarchy that will endure and that the public can actually believe in. George is 12, about to start at Eton in September, a decision made quietly, carefully, and completely without a press release or a content strategy. William and Catherine visited alternative schools. They weighed what was right for their son: security, proximity, tradition, the specific needs of a boy being prepared for an extraordinary future. They made a considered, private, deeply parental decision, and then they said nothing about it publicly, because that is what actual protection looks like. Charlotte is 11, Louis is 8. Their parents show up for them in ways that never make the front page, never anchor a brand campaign, never arrive timed to a product launch. Deliberate, present, and completely uninterested in turning childhood into content or children into leverage. The contrast with what is happening in California is not subtle, and it does not require much editorializing. It speaks entirely for itself. Angela Levin is clear that Camilla will never permit Meghan back into that world, not out of personal animosity, not out of cruelty, but out of something far more grounded than either: a sharp, clear-eyed understanding of what would actually happen if she did. The chaos that followed Meghan's entry into the royal family is not something the institution is willing to revisit. The disruption, the leaks, the television interviews, the legal battles, the public dismantling of private conversations, none of that has been forgotten, and none of it has been forgiven at the level that would be required for any genuine re-entry. The settled view among those closest to the family is that the trust required for meaningful reconciliation simply does not exist and, critically, cannot be rebuilt by people who have shown, repeatedly and without exception, that they are not willing to change the behavior that destroyed it in the first place. You cannot rebuild trust with people who are still, actively, doing the things that broke it. That is not a harsh judgment. That is just how trust works. Charles carries something heavy: the private grief of a father who has, in any real and meaningful sense, lost his son. Not to circumstance, not to tragedy, but to a set of choices that Harry made and continues to make. That grief is real, and it deserves acknowledgement. But even that grief does not alter the fundamental reality of the situation. Harry, as the person he has become through the choices he has made over the past several years, is not someone the institution can safely or responsibly welcome back into its inner circle. The window for a clean, loving, uncomplicated reconciliation, the kind that gets announced with a warm photograph and a brief statement about family closed a long time ago. What remains is something considerably messier, more painful, and far less forgiving than any of the parties involved might have imagined when the Sussex project first took shape. And the painful part is that everyone involved already knows this, whether they are willing to say it out loud or not. As Levin put it, Catherine has helped make William so much better. He knows what it's like being a father. He knows what it's like being a husband. He's learnt it. She's helped him. So, if you want a partner, you need to find someone who's going to help you in your life, not someone who's going to be negative and moan. She moans about everything all the time. That observation cuts deeper than it might first appear, because what Levin is describing is not just a personality clash or a difficult marriage dynamic. She is describing a fundamental incompatibility between what Harry needed to grow into the person he was capable of becoming and what he actually received. William had someone beside him who made him better, steadier, more grounded, more capable of doing the work. Harry had someone beside him who redirected every resource, every relationship, every ounce of his identity toward a different project, entirely one that has left him visibly diminished and privately trapped. Angela Levin has given language to something that enormous numbers of people have sensed for years without quite being able to articulate. The mystery around Lilibet is not a coincidence. It is not an unfortunate byproduct of genuine privacy protection gone slightly too far. It is the direct, calculated, entirely predictable consequence of a mother who made a deliberate decision that controlled mystery served her commercial and narrative interests better than simple, ordinary transparency ever could. And the cost of that decision is now being tallied in public, in real time, by the woman who probably understood Harry better than almost anyone outside his own family. The cost to Lilibet, who has been turned into a global guessing game before she is old enough to understand what that means. The cost to Archie, who has been quietly pushed aside in his own family's public story because he does not generate the same commercial return as his younger sister. The cost to Harry, who surrendered everything he was and everything he had for a life that has not delivered what he was promised. That reckoning is uncomfortable to watch, but it matters deeply that it is happening, because when things go unnamed, they do not disappear. They simply continue, unchallenged, doing damage that compounds quietly over time until it becomes impossible to ignore. Angela Levin has decided to name them. And the weight of her specific knowledge, the access she earned, the time she spent, the man she actually knew means that when she speaks, it lands in a way that ordinary commentary simply cannot match. Now, here is the thought worth sitting with before we close today, and it is not a comfortable one. When Lilibet is old enough to search her own name on the internet, and she will be far sooner than anyone might expect, what exactly is she going to find? Not the carefully curated version her mother constructed, not the warm Instagram captions or the soft California light or the lifestyle brand built around the suggestion of a beautiful, protected childhood. She is going to find the debates, the AI allegations, the comparisons to clothing brand imagery, the global conversation about whether the face in her own birthday photographs is genuinely hers. She is going to find the questions about her brother's disappearance from the family's public narrative. She is going to find Angela Levin's assessments, Paula Froelic's investigations, the Hello magazine admission, the warehouse full of unsold product, the minor influencer who turned out to be more convincing in her mother's own promotional content than her mother was. She is going to find all of it, because the internet does not curate itself to protect the feelings of the people at the center of its stories. And the question that sits most heavily is this: when she reads all of it, will she feel protected? Will she look at the sum total of the choices her mother made, the hidden face, the birthday campaign, the commercial strategy, the brother quietly written out of the content, and feel that those choices were made with her well-being genuinely at the center? Or will she feel something else entirely, something that no lifestyle brand and no carefully managed narrative can retroactively fix? These are not rhetorical questions. They are real ones, with real answers that are coming whether anyone is ready for them or not. Archie will be 16 one day. Lilibet will be 15. They will have full access to everything that has been said, written, debated, and documented about their childhood, and unlike their parents, they will not be able to manage the narrative around their own early years, because that narrative was managed by someone else entirely, without their input, before they were old enough to have a perspective on it. And perhaps the most striking thing about this entire moment, the photographs, the brand, the silence, the biographer who has finally said plainly what she thinks is what it reveals about the gap between the story Meghan has told and the reality that is now becoming impossible to paper over. The story was always about protection, authenticity, freedom, and a family choosing a better life on their own terms. The reality, as it emerges piece by piece through the work of people like Angela Levin, looks considerably different. It looks like commercial pressure driving decisions that are framed as personal ones. It looks like a brand in trouble reaching for its most potent asset, the children, every time the numbers disappoint. It looks like a man who once had genuine purpose and genuine warmth being slowly replaced by someone his oldest friends and closest observers no longer fully recognize. It looks like two young children navigating an arrangement they did not choose, one of whom is highly visible and one of whom has effectively vanished, and the difference between them is not love, and it is not privacy. Angela Levin did not arrive at these conclusions quickly or carelessly. She spent years giving the benefit of the doubt. She sat with Harry in genuine good faith. She wrote his story with genuine care. The bluntness you hear from her now is not the bluntness of someone who always wanted to tear this down. It is the bluntness of someone who watched something she genuinely hoped for be dismantled, piece by piece, until she no longer recognized it. That is a specific kind of grief, and it gives her words a specific kind of weight that is very difficult to dismiss. The truth, when it finally arrives, rarely arrives with fanfare. It arrives in the specific, quiet, well-sourced observations of people who were close enough to know and who have finally decided that staying silent costs more than speaking plainly. Angela Levin has made that decision, and the conversation she has started is not going to stop simply because it is inconvenient for the people at the center of it. If today's video gave you something real to think about, hit that like button. It helps more people find this content, and this is exactly the kind of conversation that deserves a wider audience. Not subscribed yet? Right now is the moment. Turn on that notification bell so you never miss what's coming next, because there is a lot more ground still to cover. Share this one with someone who needs to see the full picture, not the carefully managed version, the real one, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. What stood out to you most? What do you think the next chapter looks like for this family, for Harry, for Meghan, for Archie, for Lilibet? Do you think the cracks are too deep to repair, or is there still a version of this story that ends differently? Because at the end of the day, that is what makes this more than just royal drama. These are real people, real children growing up inside a story they did not write. And the choices being made right now will follow all of them, every single one, for the rest of their lives. That matters, and it deserves to be talked about honestly. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves.